Hello, MGTOW. Hello, man. This is Howard Dare. Thanks for stopping by. So, I want to talk about MGTOW philosophy and how it can save your life. But first, very quickly, let me say thank you to everybody who's been stopping by, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing, even donating. I really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the Howard Dare channel because there's a lot more content like this, and I would really appreciate it. So let's talk about MGTOW philosophy and how it can save your life. Now, a lot of men in MGTOW would start arguing over the term MGTOW philosophy or MGTOW movement or MGTOW mindset. I think this is largely an argument over semantics, just the meaning of words. But there might be a difference between the ideas and principles that encapsulate the basic MGTOW mindset versus the idea of some sort of temporary social movement, okay? But I don't see a problem if somebody who's learning about MGTOW refers to it as the MGTOW movement. I believe that Milo Yiannopoulos wrote an article a few years ago known as, the male sexodus. And I believe it brought a lot of attention into this area. So words, people need to be creative in how they use words. I have no problem with it. But it's essentially a philosophy, a set of ideas, okay? And it's not my place, to strictly define or delineate what that philosophy is, for any individual man. But I think that implicit within the phrase, men going their own way, is one of the major principles related to MGTOW. And it's freedom. It's going your own way. It's not men not having sex with women, okay? I know that a lot of men just jump to that conclusion. No, not necessarily. But certainly recognizing yourself as an independent individual that has to take responsibility for yourself and then go your own way in life. Now, does this preclude working with other people? Does this preclude working at a job? Of course not. Does this preclude having a relationship with the opposite sex? I don't think so. That's not what it means. But it does mean looking out for your own interests, seeing and recognizing yourself as a discrete individual. And the reason why this is so important is that we live in a society, in a culture, in a system. You have relationships with some people, many people rather, that want to use you, that don't really care about your interests in life. I know, it's hard to believe, right? It is actually hard to believe for a man. For an honest man who isn't looking to cheat anybody, that other people are trying to cheat him, yeah, it's an unusual thought because it almost necessitates the idea, a very combative mindset towards the entire situation. And for a very strong and capable man, you don't want that. You know what I mean? like if you've got a backyard, well, okay, I'm not going to go into it. I'm not going to go into that. No animal comparisons today for you. Okay, so if you've got a backyard that's full of a bunch of bulls, okay? First of all, you probably can't even keep them penned up together because they're going to go after each other. But let's just say that they're all out there, okay? You do not want to start waving red flags in front of them. You just don't. You don't want to put on, your brightest red outfit and run through the herd of bulls. It's not a good idea, okay? I'm just putting that out there. In case this ever happens to you, don't do that. You can do a lot of things, but don't do that. Okay, moving on. As I see it, MGTOW is an indictment of pathological altruism. Now, within civilizations, generally what you're raising are cooperative, intelligent men. That's what your system is building. You need to build those things in order to perpetuate the system. And that's what we've done. And now it's gone way too far with women wanting equal rights, but without equal responsibility, right? Women are no more suited to leading a country's foreign policy than a man is qualified to have a child. It's just not in them. Indeed, the women seem to want to apply the principles of motherhood in a competitive world. And that's what's happening. A female mindset regarding how we behave socially has become dominant. And there's a reason why there's no great matriarchies throughout human history. they collapse. They can't sustain themselves. This is why this message is so important, that as a discrete, independent individual looking after your own interests, who can then be part of a group if you choose to do so, you're a free, responsible individual, and you have to take care of yourself. You're going your own way. You have to protect your own interests. You have to separate your interests from others. It's very safe, isn't it, to be part of the group, to not have any definite decisions for yourself, but to just follow the herd. And in some cases, I would suggest that it's actually wise in many instances, or at least, you go along to a point. My father told me a story of World War II in France, and they had told him to, dig their foxholes, and he went off and dug his foxhole away from the group, or a foxhole away from the group. And they asked him, why are you doing that? And he said, because in the night, when we're attacked, they'll attack this area, and I don't want to be in this area. And they said, well, you have to dig your foxhole over here. Right, so he did, right? Of course, And then, no doubt, he went over to the other foxhole and, spent the night over there. And then in the morning came back. He didn't tell me whether or not anything had happened, but you need to look out after yourself, first and foremost. The idea of going along with the group, it's okay if it's a conscious decision that you can, when you want, take it back. But if it's an abdication of responsibility, if you're just going along with the group because you don't want to disagree and you don't want to upset the group and you don't want to think for yourself, well, that's going to come back to haunt you, isn't it? That's an act of weakness and cowardness. And as a child, that's fine. As a young person, maybe you can afford to make that mistake once or twice in life, but that's it. Okay, so don't do it. This is why identity politics is so unworthy. Again, it doesn't preclude the idea that there might be some, valid conflict that people need to speak about. But then to just break it down, to men versus women, women versus men, race, versus race, ethnicity versus ethnicity. No, again, you know what I mean? That's abdicating that individual personal responsibility. And it seems like, the more intelligent a person is, the more capable they are of handling these things, or the more skills and training that they have to do such things, the more likely they are to go down that way, to go that way. And it seems like the masses of people, the majority of people, in difficult circumstances, they form their groups and they go along with their group. So at its basic core, I'm just saying that MGTOW is self-determination, and that's freedom. And hopefully you can be responsible with that. Otherwise, you lose the self-determination and you become part of the group. You start to rely on the group. And this does not preclude the idea that you could work with a group if you wish to and you choose to. But you should know the dangers. This is the same thing with the female relationships. You know what I mean? It's like, well, MGTOW means that the men are celibate. It's like, no, it doesn't. Why would it mean that? This would be like saying, you're teaching somebody about nutrition and diet, and therefore they can't ever eat food again. It's like, what are you, crazy? So, the idea is that the man is aware of female nature, is a discrete, self-determining individual, and then if he chooses to interact with anyone under any circumstances, of course he's free to do so. With this awareness that it's very likely that they are part of the herd and that they're going to destroy him. They're looking to destroy him. Look, even other men who come into MGTOW, they're not MGTOW. They're just angry men who are hurt and want to be part of a group, and then they make up a bunch of rules, and then they say, this is part of my group, and that isn't part of my group. And I'm good at this and part of the group, and they're bad at that and, not part of the group. And they think it's MGTOW because they call it MGTOW, but it doesn't represent any of the core principles, foundational ideas within MGTOW. I'm not trying to tell people what they can and can't do. I'm trying to give people some insight to the situation that they're in so that they can make intelligent, informed decisions. One of the most fundamental insights that you can have is that women are not what you imagine them to be. They are not Disney princesses. They are not the purpose of your life. They are not the solution to all your life's problems. See, the men pedestalize and idealize the female form, or at least they do when they're raised, in a kind of Western cooperative system. And it's a falsehood. They worship the female form, the idea of getting together with women. Women don't worship men and the idea of getting together with men, right? And men, men and boys, they're not informed of this. They think that the way they feel towards women is the way that women feel towards men. And it's not so. Often the man idealizes the woman and actually says, if I can get together with this woman, then all of the problems of my life, all of the suffering of my life, all of the hardships and sacrifices of my life will have meaning in getting together with her. This is a male thing. This is not a female thing. She is looking at men as disposable resources. And you can watch many of my earlier videos from that talk about this, why we would evolve this way. So the men are dumbfounded when, the woman divorces them, when the man has lost his job and he's down on his luck and he needs her to stand by him and he's at his most critical time, and she dumps him for his boss who makes more money. And the man can't understand it because he's built up this fantasy in his mind and through media, through conditioning and training, through the institutions of our civilization: entertainment, media, education, politics, social interaction, expectations, law, custom, practices. Are these things done with women? Not as much, right? Like you don't have to control them and break them as you do with the men. Now, from my perspective, I could talk about Ayn Rand and objectivism quite a lot as it relates to MGTOW. I could talk about freedom itself and free markets as it applies to MGTOW. I think these are fundamental aspects of MGTOW. I could talk about Nietzsche's herd mentality versus master morality. The idea that a civilization, a culture, is built on a kind of master morality. People taking charge and doing good work, meaning effective work, right? Like you build city walls and they're good, strong walls that do their job. And you would judge everything in life according to how well it did its job. A meritocracy, master morality. Once you have that in place, right? Once you've built really nice city walls and you have enough food and you have enough, your basics are taken care of, you can develop another group of people and they can grow because you can take care of them. And I'm not talking about children, although, yeah, that you need to be able to do that. You need an excess of resources for that. But no, I'm talking about a slave class. I'm talking about a working class, a labor class that cannot themselves do good work, not independently, but they can assist. They can be a worker for someone who has already set these things up, a working class. Now, over time, this system is going to become, more stratified. Like those on the top are going to gather more resources and those at the bottom, or it's going to be harder and harder for them to move up. But they still have a vastly better life working for somebody who has built something productive than they would trying to build something productive for themselves. So I think recognizing this cycle, that eventually your working class is going to outbreed your productive class, and that they are going to invert the values of the system. And that's largely what seems to have happened with Rome, with Judeo-Christian principles and ideas. And it's not necessarily, bad in and of itself, because the world is not merely survival of the fittest. It's truly not. A reevaluation and a rebalancing of these, value sets. And that is largely the conflict that we're experiencing now, in many ways. Your media concentration centers in the cities, controlling large swaths of the population that are dependent on government assistance, and they will follow the group. These group dynamics are enforced very strongly at these lower levels because, it's peer-to-peer. People they don't have a whole lot of productive skills, okay, to go their own way. So they're part of the group and they depend on the system. So the people within the system monitor and make sure that the others conform to the system, to the rules, to the social norms. And that is how they determine their position within the group. This is what I was talking about earlier with the guys who come into MGTOW, call themselves MGTOW, then create a whole bunch of rules and then say this person follows them, that person doesn't follow them. Therefore, I'm a great MGTOW and therefore they're a bad MGTOW. That's not what MGTOW is about. That's identity politics. That's attempting to overturn a master morality, an objective, reality-based reality, a meritocracy. And understand that's what's being torn down right now in Western civilization. This is why the good hardworking, strong, professional people, they're in a lot of trouble. In any case, I may have bitten off a little bit more than I can chew here in this video, the philosophy of MGTOW and how it saves lives. This is just the beginning. This is just the surface. In any case, I'm going to have to leave it at that for now. Let me know what you think about this in the comments section below. And please like, share, comment, subscribe, donate, and join me again, Howard Dare, as I plan to have more content for you. Thank you, everyone.